What's up, guys? Welcome back to a new video here, and we're going to talk about Donald Trump on Joe Rogan. So, very interesting episode. It was 3 hours long, which is honestly more than I expected. I expected maybe an hour, hour and a half. But again, Trump and his team is very smart. I mean, they're trying to go, it looks good to do a 3 hour interview. And Trump knows Joe Rogan is the king of the podcast world. He wants to get as many views as possible on it, and he knows it would be more viral probably with the longer the interview went. And it was a full 3 hours. And by the way, he delayed actually his people at a rally. I think it was in Michigan for several hours because of this. But guys, let's just be honest. And people who saw it, I mean, you can deny it, but it was a softball of softballs. I mean, it was wild. There was virtually no pushback on pretty much any question. I mean, it was legitimately wild. I mean, it was very minor at best. And honestly, a lot of the semi-adversarial questions were from a right-wing framing, like the deficit, for example, which Rogan posed to him. It was from a right-wing perspective, of course, of, oh, why was the deficit going up in your administration? A question about nuclear energy. And the questions where, the 2020 election, for example, he would ask him, but it would be, he would just let him, he asked him, would you present any evidence, sir? And he said, oh, he starts blabbering on, saying, oh, we have presented evidence, we have papers, and Joe just doesn't, he does not push. He doesn't push and see what's going on there. Then he says J.D. Vance, it was so based what J.D. Vance did in telling some New York Times reporter about, oh, big tech censorship, about the Hunter Biden laptop story. They both talk about how the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story played a major role in the election, how the Democratic Party has become the party of anti-speech and censorship. Yet Rogan doesn't ask Trump about, oh, wait a second, Elon Musk censored a story done by Ken Klippenstein, by the way, of a anti-J.D. Vance dossier that was picked up and leaked, which Klippenstein got his hands on, and it was censored on Twitter and not released for several days, and Klippenstein was actually banned. This was coordinated between the Trump campaign and Elon Musk, according to a number of sources. But there was no questions about that. Trump has called for banning CBS and revoking the license of ABC. That's as censorship as it gets, guys. Was there any questions on this from Rogan? No, of course not. It was pretty wild to see, and I thought it was going to be a softball, but there was basically no pushback. I mean, it was pretty wild. The first question he asked, guys, was, why is everyone in the media orchestrating against you? Guys, this is the interview of a major political candidate in the United States. And even if it was Harris, she should be giving a difficult interview also. There's a week out for the election, and you have questions like that to a major political candidate. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's not how interviews are supposed to be conducted like this. It was so bad, it was wild. And I didn't have high expectations going in. It was patty cake the entire time. And the reason why I was a little surprised is because a year ago, on Lex Fridman, Joe has a very long-length answer about how he doesn't want to help Trump. He would need to be asking difficult questions and hold his feet to the fire. And he did not do that at all. At all. I mean, it was wild. Nothing about... And again, of course, Joe Rogan, they always talk about the conspiracy theories with Epstein, who's on Epstein's list. There are stories about, there's countless stories of Trump and Epstein, whether it's true or not. There was a news story that was reported recently. If it was a Democrat and you had a story that was being reported about them and their ties to Epstein, you better believe Joe Rogan is going to ask them about it. But not even a question about Donald Trump and his ties. None at all. And it tells you all you need to know. It's very biased. Clearly, he's on the Trump train. And guys, Trump actually, it was pretty smart, to be honest. Like, he was trying to goad Rogan into an endorsement kind of during the podcast, and Rogan didn't really take the bait, but at this point, why not just do it? It's pretty clear where his leanings are, but he decided not to do it. It was wild. There was no questions on, again, in terms of policy, there really was not that many questions. I mean, on gun control, nothing. Climate change, nothing. And Rogan is said to be very pro-environmentalist. There was really no questions on that other than Trump saying, oh, there's super clean water and air in my administration. Another thing Rogan asked, what was one of the biggest mistakes you made in your administration? It was, oh, I didn't select some people. And Rogan said, oh, the neocons? And Trump said, yeah, but it wasn't as if his issue was with the actual ideology of the neoconservatives. It was that they weren't loyal, they were disloyal people, talking about John Kelly and, Milley, assuming. But that's the thing. Rogan, again, he didn't further engage with that point. And of course, they bring up the Hitler point, how John Kelly is compared, or Rogan didn't even say that. He said, oh, now the left, they're comparing you to Hitler, they're calling you a fascist. Well, no, Rogan doesn't bring up how it was. The media is not exactly saying this. Sure, there's some outlets in the media, there's some personalities, of course, but no. They're just reporting what people in his administration have said he said. That's important context that Rogan didn't even bother to bring up. And guys, it's not. It's just not a normal podcast. I don't want to be killing him here, but this is a huge podcast that has tens of millions of views, and you should be doing the basic amount of. You have to do a basic amount of pushback here with the presidential candidate. And even, by the way, with a fascist, they're calling you a fascist now. Trump literally calls Kamala Harris a fascist on the daily. It's wild, and he doesn't ask anything about that. It's so insane. It's so insane, guys. Talks about Kim Jong-un, how it was so great, how you were calling him, Little Rocket Man. That was so great. Yeah, Joe, it was great statecraft. It's amazing. That's the thing, too, where people say, oh, Rogan didn't change. The left changed. 5 years ago, there's no way this would be how he would go after this. It's pretty crazy. And then they, of course, in the 2020 election front, they asked him, oh, did you lose? Trump, again, as I said, he gave them a chance to explain and elaborate his position. Trump did not do that. But he basically said he won again, and Rogan didn't push back at all. As far as Harris, Rogan basically said he wants to have her on, and that was interesting. But I think it's pretty clear it's not, because Trump, my personal opinion would be that it would be more of a hardball with Harris than Trump. And it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that happens, but I don't know. And then even Trump, the questions were so crazy, guys. Like, it's just so nuts to see. And even if you're a Trump supporter, the question should not be this bias. At least don't present yourself as someone who's just, trying to have a conversation, because clearly that's not what was happening here. For example, Rogan asked him, oh, how is your health so unbelievable? Guys, what? What are we talking about here? Sure, there's no question he has a lot of energy for a normal 78-year-old person doing all this campaigning. There's no question about that. But it's been in the news. It's been a pretty significant news story recently that Trump has not released his medical records. And Rogan does not even ask about that. How is that even possible? If it was the other way around, that would not be the case, and everyone knows it. Rogan would, of course, press him on it. The double standard is truly amazing here. And, of course, they do their crapping on Tim Walz, how he's terrible. Do those feminine things, Rogan says, just totally accepting the framework of Trump the entire time. It was pretty disappointing, guys. It was not as good as I expected. I truly thought Rogan would be better, just because of what he said in the past. That was so wild. And even for example, even on Israel, no questions at all. Joe's had a pretty pro-Palestinian position in terms of his rhetoric for the most part. And Trump, of course, has a very different position. He's very pro-Israel, very pro-military funding. Zero questions at all of that. None. Nothing. Completely nada. And that's it. Again, you have to wonder, did Trump say he doesn't want to talk about certain things before, and Rogan said, okay? I don't know. And even afterward, Rogan goes, oh, it was so incredible. He had energy. He didn't ask to get a bathroom break. It was very impressive to see for 3 hours. He just stood there. With all due respect, if you're doing a 3-hour softball interview, it's not that hard to do that. I can sit here and talk for 3 hours with anybody. So it was pretty rough to see. Does it change anything? I don't know. I don't think so, because I think most people are probably... because it was a softball, because there was no really substance, in my opinion, from the interview, really, it's not like there's any huge breaking news out of the interview, I feel like. It was more, because Trump's been on the podcast run already, a lot of it's old news, a lot of things were discussed. It wasn't that interesting, to be totally honest with you. Of course, it's going to generate a ton of views, and it's impossible to say, but I'm not sure anyone's going to watch this and say, oh, wow, I'm changing my mind, I'm voting for Trump now, or, oh, yeah, I'm not voting for him now, and maybe it's possible. But it was interesting. I think it's pretty fair to say Rogan's on the complete 180. He's definitely in the Trump camp now. If I was him, I would just endorse Trump, from his perspective, because he obviously has, he's in that camp 100% now. There's no question about it. But it's pretty crazy. And even and we'll get to the Iran video, guys, that'll be coming out later today, but overall, it was pretty boring interview. And, listen, if you like Trump, you're probably going to like it in terms of, it was a long form 3 hour interview. Of course, it's interesting to see Joe Rogan and Donald Trump shoot the shit. It was pretty interesting in that sense. But this is a presidential candidate for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be a friendly, you guys are best friends. And same thing with Kamala Harris if she went on. It should be a different form of conversation, but it wasn't. It was just way too easy. I just think these guys in new media, for example, because again, Trump hasn't done many adversarial interviews it That's why it makes it all the more important for it to be a tough interview, because there's really not many mainstream guys talking to Trump. He's not getting many difficult interviews. That's why it's even more important for guys like Joe Rogan to give him tough questions. I mean, this is a serious situation, guys. We got 1 week before the election. All the candidates should be facing tough questions. As should Kamala Harris. I don't think she's going to go on because, let's be honest, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be adversarial. Joe's obviously going to be very, way more tough on her than it is him. And even afterward, they're saying like, oh, I don't know if she can handle it for 3 hours, and Joe's just laughing her along. It's obviously he has a bias, but regardless, it's interesting. That's my take on it. But I'm sure it's very polarizing. I'm sure people are going to have a wide array of takes. But overall, yeah, that's it, guys. And we'll come out with the Iran video later today. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.